What if I told you I made Doom, running inside Doom, running inside the Unreal Engine? Yeah, it's DOOMception. Why Doom? Because Doom is the hello world of 3D graphics. Sure, it's not quite as wild as running Doom on a toaster or your refrigerator, but come on, this one's playable inside your own Unreal level. Granted, Doom ran in under 4 megabytes of RAM, and Unreal uses more memory just loading the editor splash screen, but hey, it's cool. Under the hood, I'm using the Libretro Doom emulator core. That's the portal to hell and demons. Download it from the link I give you, and most of the heavy lifting is done. Swap the core, and with a little editing, you can play Wolfenstein, NES games, or even create a DOS box inside Unreal. To keep the internet police happy, I'm using the free Doom WAD. If you own the classic Doom like I do, you can drop that in too. It doesn't make a difference. I've put together a full step-by-step tutorial book with the source code. And for a small donation to the channel, you can copy and paste your way through embedding the legendary Doom into your level. Or grab the free preview, which is the first 3 chapters to see the dynamic texture magic in action. Just one step away from Doomness. And sorry, Blueprint fans, this one's pure C++. You need threading, memory control, and external DLL calls. And that's where C++ shines. So enough of the hype. Let's switch gears and start creating Doom in Unreal Engine. You will need the full tutorial or the free preview because there are hundreds of lines of code, and copying and pasting is the only way we can get through this in a reasonable amount of time. This has been a 2-year journey for me, but the video can't be that long. Part 1, we'll create the project and download the 2 files we need. I'm using Unreal Engine 5.5 because that was the latest version when I started the project, but theoretically you can use a newer version. I'm also using Visual Studio 2022 on a Windows computer because I'm using the libretro.dll core for Windows. We'll download that core and the free Doom WAD file in just a minute. Also, I'm assuming you're not a total beginner and you've created Unreal projects before, but that doesn't mean a beginner can't go through these steps. Okay, let's first create the project. Let's pick first person, C++. You can have starter content or not, you don't need it. I'm using my D drive for my Unreal projects. You'll need that later. And we'll call it Doom project and hit create. It's going to create your C++ files and your project files. Once it's done creating, the editor will come up and also your Visual Studio 2022. Now go back to the tutorial PDF or the free sample. Click on the link to the DLL file. It will automatically download. Also, click to get the WAD file here. Go ahead and grab it, and it will download those. So you have those 2 files. Now that we have everything we need, we can start building our project. First, we're going to edit the build.cs file. Ours is called doomproject.build.cs. The build.cs tells Unreal what modules and build settings the Unreal build tool will need. Start in your project directory, go to source, go to your project, and there it is. Right click on it, go to Notepad. Now let's go over to your tutorial file, and we'll go ahead and copy that, and then we'll go back into the text editor and paste it, and make sure and always save. What we have added is just new modules we'll need. These are for pushing data to the GPU and some audio stuff. Now let's go into Visual Studio and build our project and see if we've broken anything with that one little change. But to be fair, the build.cs file is the go-between for the editor and the compiler. So let's make sure that we have this on development editor and Win64. We'll go ahead and build. I'll go ahead and build here and Doom project. We'll do this one first. Okay, we have one error. And if you look, it says the live coding is on. Live coding allows you to compile without restarting Unreal Editor, and it's a real headache. So let's go back into our editor, go to Edit. Let's go to Editor Preferences. Let's go to Live Coding, and let's turn it off. Go ahead and close it. Let's go back to the compiler. Let's build. Let's build the solution again. Takes a little while. And there we have it. We're done. Everything compiled fine. Let's go to the next step. So the next thing we're going to do is make the classes that we'll need for our project. We'll go ahead and create all of them just to get them out of the way. First, let's create the A Dynamic Texture Screen class. So go up to Tools, go to New C++ Class. It's going to be an actor. Let's hit Next, and we're going to call the actor, let's go ahead and paste, A Dynamic Texture Screen. Because of the pickiness of C++ being case sensitive, and it's a great habit, capitalize it like I have and be consistent throughout your project. Let's go ahead and hit Create. And we're done. Next, we'll create the libretto instant. Do the same thing, go to Tools, New C++ Class. This one, we're going to make an object. Here's the object at the top. Go Next, and then we'll go ahead and call it libretto instance with the I capitalized. And we'll go ahead and create. And finally, we'll create the libretto synth component as a synth component. So let's go there, C++ class, all classes. Let's search for that, which is going to be, there it is, synth component, which is what we want for our class type. And we'll go ahead and call it libretto synth component, and we'll create that class as well. Excellent. Now we've got all three classes created. Let's see if they showed up. You go to your C++ classes in your content browser, then go to your Doom project, and there's your A Dynamic Texture Screen, libretto instance, and libretto synth component. They're all there. Now let's close the editor, because the next step is to drop in some code in Visual Studio and rebuild. It's always best to start with a fresh start in the editor. Make sure that everything's saved down here so nothing's there. Then we'll go ahead and close the editor. Okay, over here in Visual Studio, we have one more file to create, and it's the libretto shim header file for the core. And so here's what we do. First, Visual Studio is going to come up with this pop-up, and it's asking you want to reload all these files we just created. So just go ahead and say reload all. Now come over to the Solution Explorer. Let's open the Doom project. Let's go to Source, and let's go into the Doom project one more time. And here's all the files that you just created, and here they're up here as tabs as well. But we got one more to create. So let's right click. Let's do Add and New Item. And this one is going to be called libretto underscore shim. And we'll go Add. Okay, all our files are created. Now we have to put some real code instead of the code that automatically gets put in these files. First, let's start with the header file for the dynamic texture screen. Go over to the tutorial and then grab the code that's there for that. Go back over to Visual Studio, choose the A Dynamic Texture Screen.h, and let's go ahead and replace everything that's there. So there is the new code, and hit save. Next is the A Dynamic Texture Screen C++ file. Let's go back over, find that, go ahead and copy it. go back over into Visual Studio. Let's go ahead and replace all of that as well. And save. Now here, sometimes you get a pop-up about your characters and stuff. Just hit yes. Okay, we're finished with the first section of code. What we're doing is creating a dynamic texture. Before filling the texture with Doom, let's do color bars just to make sure that the hardware and software are compatible for our project. This is a walk-run method of programming. Here's what the software is doing. Going through the software line by line is beyond the scope of this video, but drop me a comment if you have a question or want a full video on a part of this project. Just let me know. Pause the video if you're interested in reading. The code is commented as well. Notice it's a lot like the structure of blueprints. It's the same, but we need C++ because we're calling into external DLLs and we're using threading among other things. Okay, now it's for the big test. Let's go ahead and build. Build the solution. Amazing, it compiled. Anytime you get a clean compile, you just have to smile to yourself. Okay, now it's time to go back into the editor. For the more beginner types, please don't use the Epic launchers. That takes forever. There's two fast ways of starting up your project. First, go to your project directory and you can double click on your project and that will bring it up. Or go into Visual Studio and hit this here, which is Start Without Debugging. It compiles for you and it starts the editor. Next, we need to create the material that uses our new dynamic texture. Let's go in and right-click in our content drawer. Let's go to Materials. And then let's call it m_retro screen. And let's go ahead and double-click on that. The material graph, let's go and choose Unlit. Let's create a node called Texture Sample Parameter 2D. And this, you have to be very careful on the case sensitiveness. Video text, because that is what is in the C++ file. Go ahead and enter, and then go RGB to the emissive color. And then go ahead and apply, and let's go ahead and save. And then we can close it. Okay, back in the editor, let's go down to our C++ classes. Let's drag the dynamic texture to the screen. Let's go ahead and rotate it. Let's bring it up. Now let's go over to the Details panel. Under Retro, Display, Base Material. Let's go ahead and call that material that we just made m_retro. Oops, retro screen. And let's go ahead and save. Okay, and now let's push play. And there you have it. Now it looks like it's rotated 90 degrees, but we're good for now. Next is creating the bridge between the Libretro core and Unreal Engine. We'll swap out those color bars for Doom. Okay, I've closed the editor. Now back into Visual Studio, but first let's go over to the tutorial file. Let's grab the Libretro shim.h file data. Let's go ahead and grab it. Let's come over here. Let's go to the .h directory and let's just throw that whole thing in there. Go ahead and save. Okay, back to the tutorial. Let's grab the Libretro instance.h data. Let's go back over here. Oops. Let's find that. Let's go ahead and select everything and paste everything. Save. Yeah, another uencode thing. Say yes. And then finally the Libretro instant.cpp. the C++ file. These 3 pieces of software are the hardest of this whole project. We could go through an hour-long video just explaining what's going on there. So anyway, go back over to Visual Studio, go to the C++ file for Libretro instance. Let's go ahead and copy it all over. Just dump it in. Let's go ahead and save. Again, say yes. Now we need to add some code into the dynamic texture screen header file. And that is going to go in the public section. So let's go over here to the .h file. Let's find the public section, which is right here, and it's pretty much empty. Let's go ahead and drop that in there. And there you go. Let's go ahead and save that. That's all the code for now. Next, we're going to take the DLL file and the WAD file and put it into our project directory. Let's create the directory structure for the core. I have multiple layers because my plan is to maybe make a video on Wolfenstein and NES cores, and maybe with Linux or a Mac. It all depends on the interest. Okay, under the Doom project, let's go to source and your project. And now let's create a folder called third party. Now we'll create another directory called Libretro cores. And finally, inside of this directory, let's do Win64. Now let's put our core file inside of that. And let's go ahead and make sure it's unlocked. Go to properties. And if you see this about security, about blocking it, make sure and hit unblocked and OK. And then Unreal Engine can use that file. Okay, let's jump back to our project directory and let's open our project. Now don't use Visual Studio to open the project. You'll get an error right now. But let's go into Unreal Editor and let's create a directory in there for our WAD file. Okay, let's go to the main directory of our content browser, right click, and then let's pick a new folder and let's call it WADs. Now, if you go in here and you try to import, it's not going to let you import a .wad file. Sorry, so we're going to have to do that manually. So let's go ahead and close the project. Now let's go to your content browser. WADs is there now. And we'll go ahead and paste the 2 WAD files that were in the zip file that we downloaded earlier from FreeDoom. And now all the additional files we need are in our project. Now let's go back over to Visual Studio and let's go ahead and build. And we're probably going to get an error. Yep, this is the error that we got. And the problem is it can't find the libretro shim.h file that we created. What happens is Visual Studio created it in the intermediate directory, but we need it with all the other files. Let's close Visual Studio because we need to regenerate the Visual Studio project files. Let's go to intermediate. Let's go to our project files and let's go ahead and copy that. Let's go back out to Doom. Let's go to our source files, our Doom files with all our other ones, and let's go ahead and paste it. Now, let's jump back to our main directory. Let's go ahead and right-click on our project, go to More Options, and Generate Visual Studio Project Files. Now, let's open our Visual Studio file. Let's go ahead and see if our shim file is there. It is. Let's go ahead and build solution, and we get a successful build. One thing I think I forgot is let's go back in. Let's go to our content folder and let's go into WADs and let's make sure that both of those are unblocked. So we can use them. Okay, now let's go back into our project in the project editor. Notice that the WADs aren't showing up, but that's fine. Let's go ahead and pick our dynamic texture. Let's go down to libretro. Here's the core path. Let's go ahead. These dots are not going to work. It's not going to find our file. Let's go ahead and put the directory that we're using. Let's pull this out. Now it assumes the project main directory, so you just go beyond that. Now for the WAD file, let's just go ahead and use the free doom 1.wad, and let's go ahead and check this box saying that we're going to start using these two files. Let's go ahead and save. Now let's close Unreal Engine and attach the core to the dynamic texture screen. So go back to the tutorial PDF, and we're going to add this one line to the A dynamic texture screen header file. So let's go back over to the Visual Studio, and in the internal helpers, let's add that to the end. Let's go here. Boom. Let's go ahead and save. Okay, back over to the tutorial, and we're going to make changes to the A dynamic texture screen.cpp file. We're doing quite a few additions and changes. So what I've done is included the whole CPP file for you to copy and then replace in Visual Studio. So let's go back over to Visual Studio, and we'll go to the CPP file, and then we'll go ahead and select all, and then paste it all in there. Let's go ahead and save. Okay, let's go ahead and build. Okay, it built fine. Back in the tutorial file, I do go into detail on exactly what we did. So it's there for you if you're interested. Let's go back into Visual Studio and let's start the editor. Go ahead and pick your dynamic texture. Let's go look and make sure everything's there. Boom, boom, boom. I notice I do have an error right there. That should be WADs, not ROMs. But let me show you what happens when you play it with the wrong file name in there. Hit play, and you get the color bars. So let's stop. And I've put in the log file, it will go ahead and tell you what problem you're having. So let's get out of that. Let's go down and let's change that to ROMs, from ROMs to WADs. WAD. Hit enter. Let's go ahead and save all. And then let's go ahead and push play. And there you have it. Now notice we are rotated like I thought. So yeah, it's working. So let's go ahead and stop. Let's go ahead and click that, and let's rotate it 90 degrees. And now let's play. And there we go. We have Doom, or we have free Doom. Okay, we only have two things left, and that's to put in the sound and to put in the keyboard and mouse control. So let's go ahead and save. And let's go ahead and close the editor and go back into our tutorial. For the sound synth component, they're direct replacements for the header file and the CPP file. So let's go ahead and copy that. Let's go back over to Visual Studio. Let's find the synth header file. There is already things that Unreal Engine puts in there. Go ahead and select them all and then copy the new software in there and go ahead and save. Then we'll do the same thing for the CPP file, the C++ file. Go back over here, go to the C++, select all, go ahead and paste, and go ahead and save. Yep, this error comes up again, just say yes. And there you go. Now the edits get a little more complicated. We're going to add sound to the dynamic texture. So let's add this include to our dynamic texture. Let's go back over here and let's go ahead and choose our dynamic texture file. Let's go all the way to the top. And let's go ahead and add that line to it. Okay, and save. Back to the tutorial file. We're going to add this section here to the end of our public section. So let's go back into Visual Studio. Let's go ahead and go to your H file. Let's go up and find the end of our, here's the end of our public. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and save. Okay, now let's go back over to our tutorial. And here we're going to add a section of code for the A dynamic texture screen C++ file. And we want to put it in the begin play function in there. So go ahead and copy it. Let's go back over here. Let's go to the C++ file. Now let's scroll down and find the begin play. Here's the begin play. Let's go ahead to the end of that begin play file or function, which is right here. Let's go ahead and just add it in and do it before this last brace so it's within that function. And go ahead and save. Now at the end of the file, there's some sound stuff that I had commented out. Let's go ahead and uncomment it. Let's go ahead and save that. Now let's go ahead and compile or build. Build was successful. Let's go ahead and open the editor. Okay, the editor's open. Now let's go ahead and hit play and see if we have sound. Let's go. Yep, we have sound. We're good. Next is the last step. We're going to put in keyboard control. First, we're going to have it where we can toggle between Doom and first-person player mode using the E key, and then we'll put in the controls for use when you're in Doom mode. So let's go ahead and make sure everything's saved, and let's go ahead and close the editor. Now we're back into the tutorial file. Let's go ahead and copy the key items that we're going to need for the keyboard control, and we'll put this in the A dynamic texture screen.h file. So let's jump back to our Visual Studio. Let's go to that header file. Let's go to the very top. Now make sure that this generated.h is the last include in your includes, because that is required by Unreal Engine. So we'll go ahead and put it right above that, and then we'll go ahead and save the file. We need to grab some includes for the C++ file. So let's go back over to Visual Studio, go to the C++ file for the dynamic texture. Let's go all the way to the top, and let's add those to the end as well. There's no generate.h include there, so we don't have to worry about that. Let's go ahead and save. Let's go back to the tutorial. Let's grab a couple of more prototypes that we're going to put in the private section of the dynamic texture screen.h file. Let's go back over here. Let's go ahead to there. We'll put that at the end of these. Let's go ahead and save. We have a couple of more that we need to put in there right here. We'll go ahead in the same place. So let's go ahead and copy that. Let's go here. Let's go ahead and save. Let's go back. Let's grab these last ones, and we'll put those at the end of all our other properties here. Let's go ahead and save again. Okay, let's go back to our tutorial. Let's grab this. This will go into the A dynamic texture screen.cpp file, and it will be at the end of the tick function. So let's go here. Let's find tick cpp. There's tick. Let's find the end. There we go. Let's add that. Let's go ahead and save. Okay, we just have a few more and we're done. Sorry, this is kind of boring, doing a lot of cutting and pasting. There's a lot of the information is in the tutorial file that you can read. Let's go back to the tutorial file and let's grab this chunk of code for routing between the worlds. And we'll put this at the very bottom past end play. So let's go here. Let's go to the very bottom. And after this last brace, we'll go ahead and put that in. Then we'll go ahead and save. Okay, now we're on the second to last piece of code that we're going to copy and paste in. It goes into the A dynamic texture screen.cpp file, and it will be at the end of tick. Let's go over to Visual Studio. There's tick. Let's find the end, and we'll go ahead and put it inside the bracket. Let's dump it in there. Let's go ahead and save. And here's the last bit of code. It also goes in the adynamic-texture-screen.cpp file. For ease for this tutorial, I'm going to just put it at the end of our adynamic-texture-cpp file. Let's put it after the brace here. And we'll go ahead and save all. Make sure everything is saved. And let's go ahead and compile or build. Sometimes I'm amazed you make that many changes and there's no compile errors. That toast function just prints what mode you're in to the viewport, either Doom or player mode. Now for the impatient people or anyone who is having build errors, after you have created the color bars and added the core and the WAD to a directory structure and in the details panel in the editor, you can just copy and replace all that code from the source code files that come with the tutorial PDF and just do a copy and replace. And you should be able to compile, and it should compile fine. Okay, that's it. Let's go to the editor and let's see what we have. Okay, here we are in the editor. Let's go ahead and push play. Seems to be working. Click inside the viewport. Let's walk up to it. Hit the E key, and then you'll see it printed to the screen that we're in that. Hit the Enter key to bring up the menu. Hit the space bar again, and there you go. You can play. Now you can replace this out for the actual Doom WAD if you have it, and then you can play the real Doom. Now, I have created this Doom-inspired level, but that's up to you. I didn't think anyone was interested in billboard sprite enemies, so I didn't include them in this tutorial. Plus, that would have taken 30 minutes to an hour just going through the blueprints for this one enemy. If you want something like that, though, leave it in the comments. Finally, in the tutorial, one of the final chapters goes into using other libretro cores and what changes probably need to be made to make them work. I'm guessing the devil is in the details, which is always the case when it comes to Unreal Engine. Anyone that's made it this far in the video, thank you. Please let me know what other topics you'd like to see. This is a new channel. I'm still trying to find out what works and what doesn't. So let me know. Have a great rest of your day.